So we got Dylan. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. Thanks for waiting.
I was actually calling to say I love your show. I recently became atheist, and this is something that kind of helped move me in that direction.
Well, that's
great.
Wonderful. Thank you.
What were you before?
I was raised Catholic, Roman Catholic, and for the past 2 years, up till about 2 weeks ago, I was a theistic Satanist. And I would listen to all the arguments against the existence of God, and somehow in my mind kind of said, well, that works for God, but my beliefs are still valid because of the whole personal experience thing.
Right.
And eventually I just came to the realization that, you know, like, I'm kind of making up logic to work for these beliefs, and the only thing I can know is of my own existence and how I should interact with the world. Yeah,
it's, you know, we talked before about personal experience. Of course, if God revealed himself to me privately at my home, I'm now justified in believing that God exists. But I'm also reasonably intelligent enough to understand that nobody else on the planet would be justified based on my experience. And in the absence of, in believing God based on what I experienced, and in the absence of being able to confirm that, personal experience is notoriously unreliable. I would have to be, I mean, I'm sure if there is a God, he knows exactly what it would take to demonstrate his existence to me and to convince me in such a way that I would be assured without wondering about whether or not I've, you know, suddenly fallen off the bus or something. If there is a God, he'd know how to do that. And I would think, gosh, can we tell them to turn that down? Holy crap. The studio next to us has something loud on that's incredibly distracting, so I apologize. But yeah, you know, if one of the things that we've done and that I did, because I felt that, you know, I had some personal experiences that perhaps justified my beliefs. And when reality did not line up with my experiences, I went back to review them. Well, what exactly did I experience? You know, whether it's the, you know, we're all standing in church singing and you get the goosebumps and whatever, and you attribute that to the Holy Spirit. If in fact you actually look at what you experienced without necessarily attempting to
behind it.
Yeah, without assuming the cause, and investigate that experience, you find that, hey, guess what? I've had that same kind of experience at secular movies and secular concerts, and when somebody that I love tells me that they love me, that type of thing. They're not always the exact same experience, but they're often in the same realm. And it's important to note that what I used to attribute to some supernatural, unearthly cause, I can now attribute to naturalistic causes.
Right.
Or not give attribution at all. It's fine to say, I don't know why this is the way it is, or why I feel the way I do, or why I experience it that way. And it would be wrong and intellectual suicide for me to assume or pretend that I did have an explanation, specifically if this led me to publicly affirm something that is false, because now I have publicly committed myself. And so I'm going to become more defensive. I'm going to instinctively defend those cherished beliefs of mine because my reputation's on the line there. I said that God spoke to me.
Yeah.
Really, I was sitting around thinking, and I got kind of this feeling that maybe this is the direction I ought to go. And in order to make myself more comfortable with the decision that I'd come to, it was, God told me to do this. And now once I've said that, I've got to defend that. And that's why so many people, even though when you're discussing the ideas and not the individual, get defensive. Not just because of core beliefs, but because they're invested in them personally.
Right. And I've actually, one of the exact statements I read, I was on a satanic forum, and it was the modern Satanism, which was a more atheistic type. And I was saying the idea of personal belief stems from, I mean, I said it was a valid argument because there's also the brain in the vat theory, which is, you know, like if you were in a matrix, you would have no way of perceiving that. Right. Or similarly, the idea that you can't know anybody else exists, you can only know you exist. And the response I got to that was, just because nobody can truly perceive reality doesn't mean you can redefine it willy-nilly to your religious prejudices.
Absolutely.
And that completely shut me down. And then that day and the next day, because I've been reading The God's Delusion by Dawkins, and I was just thinking, you know, like, it's really convincing that I should not base my beliefs on something that I have no way of actually knowing. And I also have some other things I was wanting to talk to you about that stem from the idea that if there is no God, then, I mean, we can say if there is a God, then it's possible there's an absolute morality. But if there's no God, then I'm arguing that there is no absolute morality, and further that there's no such thing as rights, that rights are kind of an illusion enacted by people's will and like how people generally want to be treated and whether or not they have the power. I think it all comes from power.
I think the God issue is completely irrelevant because I have my perception of what is moral, and it doesn't matter to me if there is a God. If it turns out that this God in the Bible is actually real and I got to face him someday, then my first thing is, wait a minute, is this book an accurate representation of your beliefs? Because if you believe slavery is wrong, then we got a problem, because I think you're an immoral ass. And so it doesn't matter whether there's a God as to whether or not there's... That is nothing more than might makes right. I made the rules and I'm going to enforce them. And my response is, okay, I can't stop you from squashing me like a bug, but that doesn't make you morally right, and it doesn't make you morally superior. And if you do decide to squash me like a bug, well, I'll die with the confidence of knowing that I wasn't a prick like you. Now, this issue of
I guess that's your answer to Pascal's wager.
Yeah, this issue of whether or not there can be, or whether or not rights exist, of course not. It's a construct. We grant people rights. It's not like there's some universal constant that is rights equals, blah blah blah. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that they're constructs. It doesn't matter that everything that we know, everything that we've ever experienced, taking a tip from Carl Sagan about us all being on this tiny, insignificant blue dot in the cosmic sense, and yet that blue dot contains every person who's currently alive and every person who's ever lived, every song that's ever been written, every book that's ever been written, every thought that's ever been thought, as far as we know, everything that is within our entire experience. Every idea and moral value, every concept of rights, every concept of the universe that around us that we are aware of that represents humanity, it all comes from there. It doesn't matter that it came from us. It doesn't make it any less significant. I'd argue it makes it more significant.
It's more special anyway.
It's certainly more significant to us.
There you go.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Dylan.
Sure. Have a great time, and I love the show. Keep doing it. And I wish I lived in Austin. I'd try and, I don't know, apply to be on the show as a host or something.
Okie doke. Well, if you ever make it down to Austin, let us know.
All right.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.